off a lot of the tabs, get rid of all the mortgage information, get rid of your blogs, YouTube channels, all that stuff. They don't want to look at that stuff on the cell phone. They want something that's easy to use, quick and simple. Okay, now the point I made earlier is your solution has to be a hunter solution. It has to be one that's a location sniffing. The big advantage we have with a cell phone is that it has a GPS device and a GPS chip in it. A computer does not. Take advantage of that. If you're going to build a mobile website, if you're going to build a mobile app, it's got to have that GPS capability. Locate your position and then give you the relevant information for where you're located. It has to. That's the huge advantage of a cell phone. Here's some sites that I like. John L. Scott, everybody up in Seattle, they like to build their own solution. This was homegrown. Is this a hunter or browser website? Well, it is a hunter site because they've got that GPS capability. Somebody pulls up in front of a house, now I can quickly hunt for properties. Here's one I covered up the name, but they're not in the room, so it's not a big deal. No GPS capability to it. It's just a pure search website. Actually, this is an iPhone app. Pure search app. You have to stick in your criteria, put your filtering criteria, whatever it is that you're searching for, and then it'll produce results. Why would I use something like this? I mean, if I'm going to be doing this at home, I'm going to go on the computer and do it instead. The only reason that I pull out, and this is a really important point right here, the only reason a consumer really will ever pull out their phone and search real estate or search for information on real estate is because they're in a mobile environment. They can't access their computer. They're either driving around or they're looking at a property. The idea that a consumer is browsing properties on your phone is a fallacy, and it just will not. And maybe there's a guy sitting on a train from Kansas City to New York right now browsing Zillow's iPhone app. But that's not the person we're trying to target, is it? The person we want to capture is the person that's actually driving around. They're looking at your listing and now give them the tool and the information, the means to get that information on the property. A couple more examples. I like Zip's app, iPhone app. I don't push apps, but I do like it. It shows your location on a map. Great hunter experience. I want information on stuff right around me. Here's one of the worst iPhone apps in the iTunes store. There's about 600 of them, by the way. So if you think the iPhone app is the route to go, keep in mind that if they go to the iTunes store to search real estate, you're going to get lost. So there's over 600 at this point, probably be 1,000 here in a month. But this one, all kinds of different search criteria, no GPS capability to it, kind of a worthless app. So delivery is now what we're seeing is the key of a mobile solution. It's not content. It is not content. Sherry mentioned a little bit earlier, she had up on her slide, she said, the consumer's in control. Yeah, the consumer is definitely in control on the computer. There's no question about that. If you don't show pictures, you don't show virtual tours, guess what? They're going to go to somebody else's website. On a cell phone, guess what? We're actually kind of taking a little bit of that control back, which is nice. And I mentioned this to a couple of people earlier. One of them, as a sales guy, one of the most important lessons I ever learned, or somebody told me a few years ago, was when the customer says yes, shut up. Just shut up. And I think everyone in this room probably would agree. And the tendency is to want to keep talking. But no, if they say yes, shut up. If they pull up in front of your house and they text in or want information on the property, guess what? They've said yes. They like the house. They've just passed 15 others they didn't like. They pulled up in front of yours. They texted in. They just said yes. Everything that you do from that point on could hurt the sale. Now, I said it doesn't matter what kind of device they have, but imagine trying to send pictures of a bathroom, virtual tours, videos, all that other garbage in a cell phone on a small little cell phone screen. All you're doing now is hurting the possibility of the agent who got the lead from developing a good relationship with that buyer. And guess what? If you don't give them pictures, we know they're not browsing the internet. We know they're not going to go to somebody else's website. Their only source of information with a mobile device is what you're giving them at that moment. And that's why I say you have a lot of control. Keep some of that information back. And I know there's probably some people that disagree with me on that, but I really feel very strongly that when you've got to capture a consumer in front of a house and they're interested, the next point is to pass that lead to an agent and let them start that relationship. And guess what? They're in front of the house. Let's not forget that. That's the important thing. They see the 4-car garage. They see the windows. They see everything that's at the house. Or how much are pictures going to help at this point? Not a tremendous amount. We kind of forget that sometimes when we're sitting in offices and we're doing conference calls that this consumer's in front of the property. Okay, mobile app or mobile web? Well, apps do have an edge right now on the iPhone, really, and that's it. Apps on all other phones, probably not as good of an experience. Everything that you can do, the third point up there, Everything that you can do in an app, you can do in a web browser. And that is a very powerful statement. And developers, this is just starting to percolate into a lot of the retail and a lot of the automobile industries that are building iPhone apps. And we're realizing we don't need to be spending money developing a device-specific software when, guess what? There is a common denominator amongst all phones. That's the mobile web. So why would we build something specific for one device? And guess what? When they pull up in front of a house for information, you want to give them a download? You want to force them to download your software and then get frustrated or hope that it doesn't crash or you have a bad experience? So the key here is when they pull up in front of a property, what they want is one bit of information, really, and that's just the price on the one property they're looking at. The idea that a consumer is using their phone to guide them around the neighborhood just is not happening. And what I've found with my technology is that, and this may surprise some in this room, the average number of homes that a consumer will look at with their mobile device, and it's only 1 or 2. And some people in this room, I always start out and ask, how many do you expect? People say, well, dozens. It just isn't happening. They're looking at most properties with their eyes. They see it. They don't like it. They finally come up to 1 or 2 that they like, and then they use their cell phone to get information. And guess what? The consumer is to the point now where I can pull out my cell phone. I should be able to expect to get automated information on our property. Every broker is coming to that conclusion right now that if somebody pulls up in front of my property, I should be able to pull out my phone and get information. And when you come to that conclusion, you have to build a mobile solution. When you finally accept that, and finally, I don't mean that in a bad way, but when the real estate community accepts that conclusion, then you're going to have to go quickly, right? No, everyone's coming to that conclusion. People will want automated information on their cell phone. So the question I always ask is, how much should we be spending on mobile? If we look at other industries as kind of a guide, it's 10 to 12%. NAR published a statistic 2 years ago that 19 or 18% of home buyers found their home from a yard sign. Is that a good guide? I'm not sure, but I think it probably should be around 15% of your mobile spend. Make it a long-term part of your budget. It's not going away. It definitely is not going away. Think about mobile like a consumer. Don't think of it like an agent. And this is probably my second major point, thesis of the whole presentation, is that we tend to become, and I make a lot of these presentations, do a lot of conference calls, and they say, well, I downloaded this app and I went out and drove around and used this app. Well, that's fine because you're an agent. Your livelihood and your job depends on you knowing about these apps and using these apps. But think about like most consumers aren't thinking at home, well, what are the cool real estate apps that I can get on my phone right now? It's more of an afterthought for them. It's when I'm driving around looking at properties, how do I get instant information at this point? If you think of it instead of like a consumer, you come up with these kinds of questions. When would a home buyer need real estate information? When they're in front of a property. What is the fastest way to get them that information? Probably text messaging. If you put a URL up on your website, very low call to action. There's a lot of studies that show real estate URLs on billboards, business signs. It's a very low call to action. And 99% of real estate websites right now, if I go to it on your cell phone, nobody does it, but if you were to, there's no GPS capability in your website. Does anybody have a GPS functionality in your website? If somebody hits your website right now with a mobile device, does it recognize that and give them a different experience? Except for Ken? That's absolutely. If you go to Intero Real Estate, one of our interorealestate.com, you're not going to get their whole real estate, their whole web page with the mortgage and all the other blogs and all the other stuff that Intero has published on the website. What you get is the 5 closest properties to wherever you're using that device. And after a lot of conversations with Gino and JT, and we sat down, we said, well, yeah, you got www.interorealestate.com on your yard panels. What's the reason why somebody would go to that? Because they're in front of your yard sign. So give them the experience that they want. The 5 closest properties are where they're standing. And hey, by the way, everything else on the street will be branded to Intero. So turning everybody's sign on that street into an Intero sign. Quickly about my company and what we do. One of the big problems that we solved is we use static codes. This is actually our client out here in Austin. This is live. You can test it out. They put it right on their main panels. We don't do rider signs. We recognized a long time ago that putting up different codes on every property sign was a wrong solution. We came up with one static code. You can put it right on your main panel, text price to 59559, and boom, you're going to get back either a choice to enter the street address you're in front of, the house number you're in front of, or a GPS link, which opens up that browser page and shows you the closest properties. So you text price, you get back the choice. It says enter the house number, or click this link. So we enter 213. We get the information on 213 6th Avenue. That's for all the phones that text. For the smartphone, you get a different experience, which is the 5 closest properties to where you're standing on the street. Very simple, very straightforward. Doesn't require building a mobile site that you have to figure out creative ways to drive people to. Texting is the strongest call to action. It's very simple and it's very straightforward. Finally, for the agents, if an agent uses our service and they text in an address 22 Catalina, I recognize because their phone number is in the MLS that